Good morning, students. In the last session, we have discussed regarding the adaptations exhibited by the animals with reference to the temperature. Today, we are going to discuss another important factor which is influencing the life of organism, that is water. So, life is unsustainable without water. Dehydration kills an animal faster than lack of food, and very well known that life has originated in the water, and this availability of water is found to be very limited in the deserts. Unless the animals living in the particular desert exhibit special adaptations, they cannot survive. So these, as they made the special adaptations to withstand to the stressful habitats, that is the reason why they can lead happy or a comfortable life there. When you think that particularly the animals living in the oceans, lakes, rivers may not face water related problems, but it's not true. So the animals which are living in the aquatic habitats like oceans, lakes, rivers also face water related problems. For them, the quality of water is quite important. So the quality of water is with reference to the pH and the chemical composition. The animals which can tolerate to the wide salinity fluctuations are called euryhaline animals. So the animals which can tolerate wide range of salinity fluctuations, so which can tolerate to the wide range of salinity fluctuations are called as a euryhaline animals. On the other hand, the animals which cannot tolerate much salinity fluctuations are called as a stenohaline animals. Okay. The freshwater animals, or the animals which are living in the freshwater, cannot live for a longer period in the marine water, and vice versa also. Even the same, and the marine animals cannot live for a prolonged period in the freshwater also. Let us look into what are the adaptations exhibited by the animals living in the freshwater habitat. Okay. Generally, the freshwater animals have to solve a problem called as endosmosis. Why they have to face the endosmosis problem means the osmotic pressure of freshwater is found to be less. The osmotic pressure of freshwater is found to be less than that of the body fluids, As the osmotic pressure of the freshwater is found to be less than that of the body fluids, water tends to enter into the body. So this is nothing but endoosmosis. As more amount of water enter into the body, they tend to lose water. So they exhibit certain adaptations. The freshwater protozoans are provided with a contractile vacuole. The freshwater protozoans are provided with a contractile vacuole. We have discussed it. So these Euglena, Paramecium. So they are having a contractile vacuoles. The Paramecium is provided with two contractile vacuoles, anterior contractile vacuole and posterior contractile vacuole. So these contractile vacuoles are helpful in maintenance of balance of water. So the freshwater protozoans are provided with contractile vacuole, which helps in the elimination of the excess water that has entered into the body. And coming to the large fishes, they are provided with the glomerular kidney. So they are provided with the glomerular kidney. So this glomerular kidney eliminates excess water that has entered into the body. During this process of elimination of water, along with the water, some salts are also lost from the body. So to compensate this loss, salt loss, they are provided with the chloride cells. The chloride absorbing cells are present in the gills. As they tend to lose more amount of water through the glomerular kidney. So apart from in this process of removal of the excess water, the salts are also removed from the body. So what will happen? The salt concentration or the equilibrium or the osmotic concentration will be disturbed. To restore the salt concentration, the gills are provided with a special type of cells called as a chloride absorbing cells. These cells absorb salts from the water. So, and thus they maintain a proper salt concentration in their body fluids. Coming to the ponds, generally ponds gets dried during the summer conditions. To overcome this problem, the protists have formed a protective layer that is called as encystment. So a protective layer is formed around the animal, the protist. So generally the ponds gets dry during the summer. So to overcome this unfavorable condition, this protist forms a protective cyst around them, which we call as an encystment. In fact, we have claimed this concept of encystment in the biology and human welfare also. The tetranuclear cyst, in the cystic stage, the entamoeba forms a protective layer over it. Later, the nucleus will undergo division and forms a 4 nucleus, which is called a tetranuclear cyst. So as it want to reach the new host, to overcome the unfavorable conditions while encountering the new host, it forms a protective cyst. So encystment is nothing but a formation of a protective cyst or layer around the organism to overcome the unfavorable conditions. So in order to overcome the unfavorable conditions, so they forms a protective layer that is called as encystment. And the freshwater sponges produce asexual reproductive bodies. The freshwater sponges produce asexual reproductive bodies called as gemmules. So these structures helpful in overcoming the unfavorable conditions. When the conditions are favorable, they will germinate and again they will produce a new offspring. Okay. The African lungfish Proteropterus, it burrows in the mud and forms a gelatinous cocoon around it to overcome the hot climatic conditions and and the dryness. As the ponds get dry, like that it overcome the problem. So that is the adaptations related to the freshwater. So the freshwater animals face a problem called endosmosis, where water tends to enter into their body because of the, as a osmotic pressure of freshwater is found to be less than that of the body fluids. As more water tends to enter into the body, to compensate these, some of the freshwater protozoans are provided with contractile vacuole, which helps in the elimination of excess water from their body fluids, from their body. And the fishes are provided with a glomerular kidney. So these glomerular kidney helps in the elimination of excess water that has entered into the body. So in this process of elimination of water, some salts, the useful salts, are also lost from their body. So to compensate these, the gills are provided with special chloride absorbing cells. Chloride absorbing cells. So they help in absorbing the salts from the water that is going out from the body. And generally in the ponds where the summer, during the time of summer, the ponds get dried. So to overcome this problem, some protist forms a protective cyst, which we call as an encystment. And the freshwater sponges produce an asexual reproductive bodies called as gemmules to overcome the unfavorable conditions. And the African lungfish forms a gelatinous cocoon around them. So that is the adaptations related to the freshwater. Next we will discuss adaptations related to the marine water habitat. Okay, let us discuss the adaptations related to the marine habitat. Generally, the animals living in the marine habitat face a problem called exoosmosis, because the salt concentration of marine water is found to be more. So the salt concentration in the marine water is found to be 30 to 35%, whereas the salt concentration in the freshwater and the inland waters is less than 5%. As the salt concentration of marine water is found to be more when compared to the salt concentration of the body fluids of the marine organisms, they tend to lose water from their body. As they tend to lose from the water from their body, they face a problem called dehydration. So they face exosmosis. As in the exosmosis process, the water is removed from the body, they face a problem called as a dehydration. In order to compensate or to overcome this problem, the marine fishes are provided with aglomerular kidney. They are provided with aglomerular kidney, which has very less number of nephrons. So this aglomerular kidney is provided with very less number of nephrons. So as a result, why they have this type of arrangement? Because as they have very less number of nephrons, they will minimize the loss of water through the urine. So to minimize the loss of water in the form of urine, they had aglomerular kidney with very less number of nephrons. And to compensate this water loss, they drink a plenty of water. To prevent or to compensate this water loss, they drink a plenty of water. So they drink a plenty of water. So along with the water, the excess salts will also enter into the body. So these excess salts will disturb the equilibrium. Okay. So to overcome this problem, the gills are provided with special chloride secreting cells. So the gills are provided with chloride secreting cells which remove the salts from the body, excess salts. And the marine birds like penguins, seagulls, they produce a salty fluid which generally comes out from their nostrils. So the marine birds like seagulls and penguins eliminate salts in the form of salty fluid which actually comes out from their nostrils. And the turtles are provided with special ducts. So the ducts of the chloride secreting cells are actually open near the eye, which remove the salts. So the turtles are provided with ducts of chloride secreting cells open near the eye, which remove the salts from their body. And coming to the cartilaginous fishes. So in cartilaginous fish, the endoskeleton is made up of cartilage. So some of the cartilaginous fishes store some amount of urea and trimethylamine oxide. Trimethylamine oxide in their body fluids. So some cartilaginous fishes store urea, trimethylamine oxide in their blood. Why they store these components in their blood? Because in order to maintain the isotonic nature with the water. So as they store the urea and trimethylamine oxide, so they attain a condition called isotonic. So the body fluid concentration is equal to that of the surrounding water in which they are present. So which prevents exosmosis, or other words we can say dehydration. That is how they manage this. This is an adaptation. As they can able to store some amount of urea and trimethylamine oxide in the body fluids. So this special arrangement helps in maintenance of isotonic concentration with the reference to the body fluids to the surrounding water. So which enable them to maintain a proper isotonic concentration, thereby preventing the dehydration. So that is about the adaptations exhibited by the marine habitat. Next we will discuss about the adaptations related to the brackish water. So let us look into the water adaptations related to the brackish water. Generally, the animals living in the brackish water are well adapted to withstand the fluctuations in the salinity. So the animals which can tolerate the wide range of salinity fluctuations are said to be euryhaline animals. Euryhaline animals. On the other hand, the animals which cannot tolerate wide salinity fluctuations are said to be stenohaline. So which tolerate a wide range of salinity fluctuations are said to be euryhaline, which cannot tolerate wide salinity fluctuations are said to be stenohaline. The migratory fishes like salmon, Helisa, they exhibit anadromous migration. They exhibit anadromous migration. So what is an anadromous migration? Migration from sea to fresh water. The migration from sea water to the fresh water is known as anadromous migration. So these salmon, migratory fishes like salmon, Helisa migrate or exhibit anadromous migration for breeding. For the breeding. And Anguilla bengalensis. Anguilla bengalensis. It exhibits catadromous migration. Catadromous migration. So what is a catadromous migration? The migration from, quite opposite, fresh water to sea water. So the migration from fresh water to sea water is known as catadromous migration. So these Anguilla exhibit catadromous migration for breeding. So in these migratory fishes, the glomerular kidney can change with salinity also. So they have an adjustable, that is capable of changing their nature. So adjustable glomerular kidney, depending on the salinity of the, depends on the salinity. So depending on salinity, they can adjust their glomerular kidney. Okay. And not only that, the chloride cells, so these chloride cells are also acts as absorbing cells, absorbing and excreting cells. So when there is a need, they absorb, the chloride cells will absorb salts. When they have to remove the salts, excess salts from the body, the same particular chloride cells will act as excreting cells. So like that. So these chloride cells are also adjustable depending upon the salinity conditions. Okay. Next. The salmon fish, after entering into the fresh water, it drinks a plenty of water to keep its body fluid isotonic to that of the surrounding water it has entered. So these are the special adaptations exhibited by the animals living in the brackish water. So the animals living in the brackish water can tolerate to the wide salinity fluctuations. So the animals which can tolerate the wide salinity fluctuations are said to be euryhaline, and which cannot tolerate the wide salinity fluctuations are said to be stealohaline. And the migratory fishes like salmon, Helisa, which exhibit anadromous migration, that is they migrate from sea to the fresh water for the breeding purpose, and the catadromous migration is exhibited by the Anguilla, where it migrates from fresh water to sea water for the purpose of the breeding. So in these migratory fishes, they have an ability of changing their functioning of the glomerular kidney. So the glomerular kidney can adjust according to the salinity conditions, and the chloride cells will act as absorbing cells as well as excreting cells depending upon the need of these salts. And the salmon fish, after entering into the fresh water, it drinks a plenty of water to maintain the isotonic, to maintain its body fluid isotonic to the surrounding water. Okay, next we will discuss about the water adaptations related to the terrestrial habitats. So let us look into the problems or adaptations exhibited by the organisms in the terrestrial habitat. The terrestrial habitat. The North American kangaroo rat can meet its, in absence of the external source of water, in absence of the external source of water, that this kangaroo rat can meet its water requirements through the oxidation of the fat. So in absence of external source of water, the kangaroo rat gets water by the oxidation of the fat, so gets the water by the oxidation of fat. So this, which is actually a byproduct of metabolism. And not only that, and the kidneys also have a special arrangement. So like that, they have an ability of producing much more concentrated urine. So they can produce much more concentrated urine. So as they can produce much more concentrated urine, so they can minimize the water loss for the elimination of the excreted product. So as they can able to produce a much more concentrated, so they can increase the concentration of the urine, thereby minimizing the water loss through the urine. So that is the advantage of this particular kidney. So I think it is clear for you. Okay. So the kangaroo rat, in absence of the external source of water, it meets its water requirements by the oxidation of the fat, which is actually a byproduct of the metabolism. And the kidneys, and to minimize the water loss through the excreted product, they can produce much more concentrated urine. As they can produce a much more concentrated urine, so they can minimize the water loss through the urine. And coming to the adaptations exhibited by some desert plants, so the desert plants are provided with thick cuticle. So we know what is a cuticle. Cuticle is a layers covering the surface of the leaf, lamina. So the cuticle, the desert plants are provided with a thick cuticle. And not only that, the stomata are located on the lower side of the leaf. That too, they are located in the deep pits. As the stomata are located in the deep pits, is often called as a sunken stomata. It is often called as a sunken stomata. As stomata are located in the deep pits, it is often described as a sunken stomata. In certain plants like Opuntia, the leaves are often reduced. The leaves are modified to spines. So the leaves are modified to spines. The leaves are modified to spine. And the stem will perform the photosynthetic activity so as to minimize the water loss from the body. So these are the various, some of the adaptations exhibited by the desert plants. Next, we will discuss about the soil. Okay, let us look into the soil. Soil is another important factor. The nature and the properties of the soil depends or varies from place to place, and it also depends upon the climatic conditions which are and weathering. What is a weathering? The process which is actually involved in the formation of soil is called as a weathering. So the nature and the properties of soil vary from place to place, which depends upon the climatic conditions and the weathering process involved in the formation of the soil. And particularly the characteristics of soil, like the grain size, soil composition and aggregation, will decide the percolation of water and water holding capability. So these, apart from these characteristics, the other parameters like pH and the mineral composition will decide the vegetation living in a particular habitat. Okay, so decides the vegetation that can support in the particular habitat, which in turn can support, decide the animal that can be supported. So coming to the aquatic environment, the sedimentation decides the benthic animals. So particularly the characteristics of soil, that is soil composition, grain size and the aggregation, decides the percolation and water holding capability. Along with these other factors like the pH and the mineral composition will decide the vegetation that can be supported in the particular soil. So which in turn dictates the animals that can be supported. And coming to the aquatic environment, the sedimentation will decide the benthic animals that can be found there. So that is about the pressure, that is about the soil. In the tomorrow session, we will discuss another important factor, that is pressure and population interactions.